It was while his face was sooty as he struggled down a flue that Santa paused like ne'er before to really think it through. His hips were sore, his belly squashed, his beard not white but grey. Perhaps, yes, after all these years there was another way. He crashed into a front room after headbutting a lintel and sat there cuckoo out of puff caught in bells and tinsel. "If I'm to keep on doing this," he muttered with a chuckle, "it might be time to straighten up, be less jelly and more muscle." Well, in the months that followed thence, he really went to town. Each one would start with wheatgrass shakes, then burpees, squats, cool-downs. And determining to purge things from the kitchen he was stood in, he drained the eggnog bin, the cake, and swore off Christmas pudding. Though old Saint Nick did not stop there. One day when he was picking blithely through some greens and beets, he really got to thinking. The poor old reindeer had pulled the sleigh for decades to the masses, but dispatched along with gifts too many greenhouse gases. So thinking ecologically and in a techie sort of way, he wondered rather than all that if he'd drive a solar sleigh. He put on photovoltaic panels and made it all renewable, so gifting much more ethically was now entirely doable. To top it all, he ditched the red and started wearing green, which was a thing he hadn't done since fall 1815. So here was Claus, all jacked and juiced, new and much improved, whizzing across the starry skies without a hint of hooves. Watching him was really something if you could have seen, as Santa bouncing down our chimneys, lean and mean, but green. But that's where things got sticky, simply because, you see, there's a funny thing about most folks like you and me. No matter who or how or where, most people are the same. Of all the things they like the least they like is change. So, then there were some sightings and newspaper reports. One in Kiev, one in Bluff, one in perhaps Porthcawl. "Phantom Claus!" yelled one front page. "Santa scam!" another. "The thing is, are our chimneys safe?" said someone's worried mother. And things just went from bad to worse. Since Santa seemed to have vanished, advertising made less sense and marketing managers panicked. Should adverts have him in at all? And if they did, what size? And should he be in red or green or brown or blue or white? Meanwhile, at department stores, confusion reigned supreme. No one knew what Santa'd do, nor quite within what theme. Were elves a thing? And wrapping gifts? Would he say ho-ho? Some shops, so over grotto vibes, trialled fluorescent snow. Christmas was combusting, the whole idea in ruin. All Santa knew, sure as his shoes, was trouble was a-brewing. He sat and pondered in his study, thumbing a Christmas carol, while streaming news showed people brawl in homeware and apparel. "What a festive pickle," he said, and turned a page. "What to do when one improves, but folk don't like the change." The people wanted good old jolly portly Father Christmas, yet here he was on Christmas Eve, pretty peckish and quite listless. "That's it," he roared, "I've got it, just in time for Christmas Day," and called down to the hallway, "Elves, my candy canes!" Since he was late and time was short, he'd nothing left to lose. He'd right the ship and sort things out, although by subterfuge. That very night, for those who watched, there was a wondrous sight. Saint Nick in red, plump as a goose, and reindeer in sweet flight. "Claus returns," bulletins cried, and things seemed as they'd been. Christmas promised presents, carols, and nice speech from the Queen. And just how did Claus pull it off and get back in the pink? Well, certainly he used the food, though not quite how you'd think. Since, truth be told, beneath the red, Claus was mainly padding, as candies, fudge, and cake mix stuffed the suit that he was clad in. And the reindeer had hardly done a thing. The sleigh was still quite solar, a minimum of gas from regions tropical to polar. Yes, a perfect happy ending. Festive, happy, bright. All loose ends had been tidied up and things were perfect, right? Well, as in all good poems, there was in this story a kid. Plucky, inventive, crafty, cheerful, a kid named Winifred. This Winnie had been plotting for many years to see Santa somehow as he flew or placed stuff under trees. So Winnie, she was watching at her window, shivery, tracking every cloud and shape as Claus wrapped up deliveries. She nearly fell right off the sill when she saw at last a light shine bright there in the sky and a sleigh go thundering past. "It's him!" she screamed into her gown lest others were awoken, and sprinted down the stairs to see a Santa-sized commotion. A puff of smoke, some chimes, and then the sound of something thumpy. And there was Claus, tall as a horse, round and red and lumpy. "Santa?" she said boldly. "Is everything okay? You look a little like you've been run over by your sleigh." "Ah," said Claus, now oozing sauce, a laugh tickling his mouth. "I think perhaps there's something that we ought to talk about." He told how he'd made changes, had tried to be more healthy, but how he'd had to cover up and make that change quite stealthy. "How else would Christmas come again, as it does each year? Sometimes one has to bend a bit so's not to stir up fears." But Winnie cocked her head aside and looked on rather doubtful. Here was a chap uneven, see, with fudge and packet trifle. "Santa, if it's really you, how come you can't just say, 'Boys and girls of all the world, it's time to make a change'?" Well, Santa went to speak, but found there really was no answer. The girl had landed on her mark as deftly as a dancer. "My goodness me," he chuckled then. "I think you may be right. There's just time now to show the crowds this marvellous Christmas night." So Claus boarded the sleigh again with Winnie by his side and hurtled off around the globe to call into the sky, "Boys and girls of all the world, here I am, it's me, Santa Claus, version 2, lean and mean and green. Changing can be tricky and growing can be tough, but do the things you do with pride, even when the going's rough." Well then, who'd believe it? Sweets and treats rained down, since Santa didn't need to plump his great big Santa gown. "All things in moderation," he called out as his sled shot away from view once more, and Winnie was magicked to bed. When she woke next Xmas morning, she gave her folks a squeeze and told them how she'd spent the night teaching Santa self-belief. "That's nice, dear," said her mummy. "Oh, good for you," said Dad. And she set off to make snow angels with her heart all full and glad.